Austin, no problem. The Lakers can go up 2-0 on the Rockets tonight, even though two of their stars are still sidelined. Luke Kennard stepped up with 27 points in Game 1, and LeBron James had 19 points and 13 assists. Houston did play without Kevin Durant, who currently has a knee injury. We are so happy to welcome in PTI's Michael Wilbon. Okay, so Durant, a game-time decision. How essential is it for KD to play tonight for Houston to try to even up this series?
Well, they're down 1-0, of course, Christine, already. And that was sort of a surprise, maybe not in the locker room, but to the rest of us looking on, that Kevin Durant suffered this injury apparently in practice and was unable to go. And, you know, it's tough for anybody to really feel sorry for Houston, given who the Los Angeles Lakers are without to start this series. But I just don't see the Houston Rockets winning this series without Kevin Durant. And I mean Kevin Durant having the impact on the game and a series that he has now for going on 2 decades. The Lakers have got to feel pretty good about their situation playing at home if Kevin Durant either isn't in that lineup or is in any way reduced, because let's face it, he is still the accomplished offensive weapon on that team, and they're going to need him to win Game 2.
You mentioned he's the accomplished offensive weapon. He is responsible for over 21% of Houston's scoring, so it makes sense. All right, let's go to the Eastern Conference. The Knicks, they fell apart at home last night, blew a 14-point lead to the Hawks, and now the series is tied 1-1. CJ McCollum went right at Jalen Brunson and finished with 32 points, hitting some big, huge baskets down the stretch. He talked about the matchup after. Take a listen.
I am no villain. I'm a nice guy with 2 kids and a wife. I think it's admiration. Great, passionate fans in a really hostile environment. It's fun. It's basketball. It's the playoffs. And if anything, I think it's a sign of respect.
You feel like you were maybe intentionally, maybe not looking to get that matchup against Jalen. I know you said it's not about beating him, but did you like what you had in those one-on-one scenarios against him?
What you think?
Was that what you said?
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love CJ. Okay, so there's always some overreaction, right, after a playoff loss. What is your take on if the Knicks are in trouble in this series?
I don't know if they're in trouble yet, Christine. I don't want to overreact just as you suggested there. But, I mean, let's face it, Atlanta's got the Knicks' attention after that. And C.J. McCollum being very direct, you know, meaning what he says and saying what he means, this means the Knicks better react, if not overreact, to that. You can't just leave Brunson, who's your best player, apparently, to confront C.J. McCollum by himself. Anunoby and Bridges are fine defensive players, and particularly one-on-one, and particularly they ought to be able to step in if they need to go to Mike Brown and say, no, I got this tonight. We're not just going to have Jalen Brunson using every drop of his energy to try to confront C.J. McCollum and get a lead 2-1 in Atlanta in this series. So the Knicks have some work to do also. Maybe you go bigger. They got to get certainly more out of Cat. You can't just have Karl Anthony Towns having 2 shots in the fourth quarter. That's not going to work. So the Knicks have got a few things to work on quickly. And are those things fixable? Yes. I mean, this is one of those where this, to me, is classic playoff basketball. We saw what Atlanta was going to do, made good on it. Series moves back to Atlanta, and now it's the Knicks' turn to make its moves, and they better be decisive. But they have to start with C.J. McCollum. You can't allow him to have 32 points, would have been 34 with a couple of made free throws late. You can't allow him to take over the game like that in Game 3.
Yeah, we'll see how they respond. Knicks, Hawks, Game 3, Thursday night in Atlanta. We have some breaking news in the NBA today, Kevin.
Christine, that's right. Billy Donovan stepping down as the head coach of the Bulls, even though owner Jerry Reinsdorf said candidates for the team's open GM position would have to keep Donovan. Donovan said it's better for the new front office to pick its own head coach. Let's bring back Michael Wilbon. You're a lifelong Bulls fan. They haven't won a playoff series since 2015. I don't need to remind you about that. What needs to happen to get this franchise back on track?
Well, the first thing they're going to have to do is take a big swing, and I mean above the coach. A big swing. A president of basketball operations, because the last one failed miserably, which is why they fired Arturas Karnisovas. They fired him, should have fired him earlier. Just one mistake, flagrant after another. Masai Ujiri comes to mind. somebody who's wearing a championship ring of fairly recent vintage, 2019, with the Toronto Raptors, and left Toronto, about a year ago. They got to take a big swing. They got to go and get a professional basketball of operations guy who can just master, first of all, personnel decisions, which the Bulls have failed miserably at over the last few seasons. So it's got to start there, and that means bringing in your own coach. It just seemed a completely flawed notion, Kevin, that you're going to start with a coach and bring in a basketball operations guy who then says, okay, we're going to team up, we'll be fine. No, I mean, that's just going at it in a way that you don't see up-to-date championship contending franchises go about their business. So the Bulls have got to start over. They started over by dumping their roster, including a lot of players who are contributing elsewhere for other teams in the playoffs. And they got nothing for it, essentially a bunch of second-round picks. And that sort of underscores the problem. But Billy Donovan, look, Billy was not the primary problem in Chicago to me, not even close to that. But the bottom line is one playoff appearance in 6 seasons. That's not going to work either. How long is Billy Donovan going to stay if you're now on a 3 or 4 year rebuild? What, 10 years?
Yeah.
So the Bulls are starting at a place where the franchise has become irrelevant. And maybe for a sustained period, for the only time in the history, the 60-year history of the franchise. So the Bulls are in a curious place right now.
Christine, I feel like we need to make them feel good about this segment. So let's end on a bright note. Christine and Kevin back with you. Back to the NBA. The Celtics host the Sixers at TD Garden tonight, hoping to take a 2-0 lead in their first-round series. Game 1 was over minutes after tip-off. Jason Tatum continued to hunt Philly, 25 points, 11 boards, 7 assists in a rout so big he sat the fourth quarter. Tatum has played 17 games this spring after coming back from an Achilles injury. Boston has won each of the last 6 postseason series versus the Sixers since Philly won the 1982 Eastern Conference Finals. And right now, history is in Boston's favor when they win Game 1 of a best-of-7. They've gone on to win that series 89% of the time. NBA senior writer Tim Bontemps is on the scene in Boston and joins us now. Tim, what are the Sixers saying about bouncing back from that dreadful Game 1 performance?
Well, Kevin, you're right. That was a dreadful game across the board for the Sixers. And really, the formula for Philadelphia to get back into this series and win any games in this series is very simple. Tyrese Maxey has to be the best player on the court, and this team has to hit a lot of shots from the perimeter. Neither of those things were the case in Game 1. Maxey was 8 for 20 from the field, did not look great, was certainly not at the level of Jason Tatum, as you mentioned, or Jaylen Brown, the 2 stars for the Boston Celtics. And Philadelphia as a team, Kevin, both didn't hit enough shots and hardly took any threes. They only took 5 threes in the competitive portion of the second half. They were 4 for 21 from three-point range in the competitive portion of the game. And overall, the Sixers were just 8 for 37 on jump shots in Game 1. That was their worst jump shooting performance of the season. So Nick Nurse, from the end of last game to his pregame availability today, said the focus is to get a lot more threes up, to be a lot more aggressive, look something a lot closer to what the Sixers looked like in their victory over the Orlando Magic at home in the play-in game last Wednesday. And if they can play with that kind of aggression, if Tyrese Maxey can be the best player on the court, they at least give themselves a chance to even up the series at a game apiece going back to Philadelphia. And meanwhile, speaking of back in Philadelphia, that is where Joel Embiid is. Kevin, he started a strength and conditioning program yesterday, coming back from that emergency appendectomy he had at the end of the regular season. Still less than 2 weeks out from that surgery. His status going forward in the series remains unclear, but certainly the Sixers would love to get a win tonight, even the series up, and go back home and see when or if they'll be able to get their superstar center back on the floor.
They certainly need the big fella, especially inside. Hey, just don't lose by 30-plus points. Tim Bontemps reporting from Boston. Christine?
Yep. Jason Tatum getting ready to do what he did to your 76ers once again. Possibly tonight. 25-point double-double. His second most in Celtics postseason history, only behind Larry Bird.
Sports betting analyst Tyler Fulgham here with us ahead of multiple playoff games tonight. Let's go to the NBA first. Your best bets, and let's start with the Celtics Sixers.
Well, Kev, sorry to your Sixers, but I like all green in this one. I'm going to build a same-game parlay around Jason Tatum doing what he's done in 5 of his last 6 games, looking completely healthy, right? 20-plus points, 10-plus rebounds. That's the Tatum stat line. I'm going to parlay that with the Sixers covering the first half spread of 7.5. So as long as they lead by 8 or more at the break, that's plus 276. I think they take a 2-0 series lead rather easily here, Kevin. Game 2 tonight that I want to wager is the Lakers again, plus the points at home. Kevin Durant, it looks like, is going to play. But how effective will he be with that knee injury? 5.5 points for a team that won Game 1. I know LeBron doesn't have Luka or Austin Reeves, but this team seems to be fitting around him very well. And you just can't trust the Rockets. They've been a team that is, what are they doing all year long? So 5.5 points for a home team in an NBA playoff game, I will take it.
I like how you talk with your hands. That was really good. Kev's doing all right, by the way.
Today, once again, Billy Donovan has stepped down as Bulls head coach, despite owner Jerry Reinsdorf saying recently that the team wanted to hire a new GM that would keep him. Donovan said it's better for a new front office to hire its own coach. Senior NBA writer Brian Windhorst here with some insight. Wendy, what do you make of Donovan's departure here from the Bulls?
Billy Donovan is correct. It is better for a new front office to hire a new coach, and the Bulls should listen to him. Frankly, the Bulls should have listened to him a year ago when he wanted to leave this job, and they should have started their rebuild then. But that's spilled milk under the bridge, and so now Billy Donovan has been looking at potentially leaving the Bulls for months now, especially at midseason when they finally, too late in my opinion, but finally started their rebuild by making some trades. That rebuild will likely continue under a new coach. And look, here's the good news for the Bulls. Billy Donovan left the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2020 when they were starting a rebuild, again, by mutual decision. He wanted to resign. 5 years later, the Thunder won the championship. It was a great rebuild. Maybe 5 years from now, the Bulls will be. But in those 5 years, Billy Donovan is going to be coaching somewhere else and probably somewhere that's more competitive.
The Bulls, by the way, the third team searching for a new head coach, joining now the Bucks and the Pelicans. Let's talk about the teams that are still playing, Wendy. The Timberwolves, they came back from the edge in Game 2, overcoming a 19-point deficit on the road behind 30 points from Anthony Edwards to tie up their series with the Nuggets at 1-1. Jaden McDaniels added 14. Had some interesting things to say about Denver's defense afterwards.
Well, some of the keys offensively as to really getting a rhythm.
Go out for Jokic, Jamal, all the bad defenders, Tim Hardaway, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, the whole team. Like, just go at them.
They're all bad defenders.
Yeah, they're all bad defenders.
Okay, McDaniels, maybe tongue-in-cheek, not so subtle there. How concerned are you about the Nuggets after how last night's game played out and them blowing that 19-point lead?
We're on a roll, Kevin, because Jaden McDaniels is also right. He is right. The Nuggets do not have good defenders. Now, I would necessarily put all of those guys on the list. I think Aaron Gordon can be a very effective defender. Cam Johnson can be an effective defender. But the Nuggets were in the bottom 10 in defense for the entire season, and for a lot of the year we're in the bottom 5. They win games with their offense. Okay, that's the bad news. The good news is this is their first loss in 33 days, Kevin. So they do just fine winning games with their offense. They lost this game at the offensive end. They could not score in the fourth quarter. Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels playing excellent defense. They're going to have to get better in the clutch. This is a team that was top 3 in the clutch for each of the last 3 years, including when they won the title a couple years ago. This year, they were 17th in the clutch, and obviously last night couldn't get baskets when it mattered. This is where the rubber is going to meet the road in this series. Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert are the perfect pairing to deal with the Jokic, Jamal Murray pick and roll. That's where it's going to matter in the clutch, not necessarily what happens at the other end.
To your point, Jokic and Murray combined for a total of 4 points in the fourth quarter after having 50 combined through the first 3 quarters. Wendy, you're the best. Thank you.
Elsewhere in the Western Conference, we're waiting to see if the Rockets can actually achieve liftoff. This is supposed to be a different Houston team after the blockbuster trade for Kevin Durant, but of course he was out for the Game 1 loss, and he is a game-time decision tonight. Our NBA reporter Dave McMenamin is on the scene in Los Angeles. All right, Dave, what's the latest that you're hearing on if Kevin Durant will play tonight?
Yeah, Christina, I've been digging into this knee injury that he's been dealing with, and multiple sources told me in the last 24 hours leading up to tip-off of Game 2 that if this was another player and it was the regular season, you're talking about a 2 to 3 week injury where the player would be missing from the lineup. But because it's Kevin Durant and his legendary competitiveness and competitive nature, and because it's the postseason, he's pushing to try to play in game 2. Now, he was a limited participant in the Houston Rockets practice on Monday. He's going to get to the arena tonight and try to give it a go, but he went through the same process in game 1, ultimately decided that didn't have enough mobility in that knee to be able to go. We'll see if tonight he feels like he has enough to try to get this team out of the 1-0 deficit that they're facing.
Yeah, I'm sure they're hoping he's back on the floor tonight. The Lakers trying to take a series 2-0 without Luka and Austin Reeves. So how is LeBron James's approach different since their injuries?
I mean, Christine, you're trying to make up for close to 57 points per game out of Luka and Austin Reeves. That's not exactly LeBron's approach. It's not like he's just trying to go out and score 40 a night. I've been told that late in the regular season, the team went to San Francisco and they had lost their first 2 games after the OKC game where both those guys got injured. And there was a total shift in LeBron's demeanor. It wasn't a rah-rah speech. It was just the way he approached the team meeting in terms of attention to detail, in terms of focus, in terms of his presence. And everybody has followed suit since then. LeBron James finished the regular season being named Western Conference Player of the Week. The Lakers won their final 3 games. They had a solid week of preparation during the play-in tournament, and you saw the results. 19 points, 13 assists, 8 rebounds in game 1 to put themselves in position to protect home court and potentially even going up 2-0 headed to Houston.
You mentioned those 13 assists, 10 assists in the first half, which matches his playoff career high for one half. Dave, have fun in LA. Thank you.
When SportsCenter continues our quarter.
Their first round series tonight. Let's recap. Game 1, the Celtics obliterated the Sixers on Sunday, never trailing in a 31-point victory. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum combined for 51 points, while the Sixers offense stalled, managing just 4 3-pointers. Victor Wembanyama introduced himself into the postseason with 35 points in a 111-98 win. Wemby surpassed Tim Duncan for the most points by a Spurs player in a playoff debut. San Antonio led by as many as 21. The Lakers did not have Luka Doncic or Austin Reeves. However, Luke Kennard stole the show to take the opener against Houston. Kennard went for 27, making all 5 of his 3-point attempts as Los Angeles won 107-98. All right, joining us now is our basketball analyst, the great Chiney Ogwumike, with us right now. And the Lakers are essentially playing with house money as they enter tonight again as home underdogs, despite Kevin Durant's knee bruise, keeping him as a game-time decision. Chiney, what will be the key for LA to go up 2-0 in this series?
I like that you mentioned Luke Kennard's performance because the Lakers really had a wholesome, in some ways, Game 1 win versus the Rockets. The Houston in me is still crying because Kevin Durant was not able to play. But I was moved by his comments about LeBron James because LeBron James was down 2 of their top players in Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. That's about 50 points sitting right there on the bench. And instead of playing hero ball, which LeBron James has the right to do after all these years, he trusted in his teammates in that moment. And that's what Luke talked about. That's why LeBron James had 13 assists. That's why Luke had 27 points and he went 5 for 5 from 3. It's the ability to trust in his teammates when the going gets tough. That's what makes LeBron James great. And that's why they have the edge right now, up 1 game in the series.
Yeah, LeBron at age 41 surpassed John Stockton as the oldest player with 10 assists in a playoff game. Let's stay out west with Wemby and the Spurs. He's coming off an incredible playoff debut that spurred San Antonio's Game 1 win. What does Wemby need to do in his playoff encore?
Step out on the floor and do what he normally does, exist, because it's Wemby's world and we are just living in it. Victor Wembanyama with a playoff debut for the ages. He walked into Game 1 and just dominated. And now walking into Game 2, he's walking in as the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year. All he has to do is stay aggressive and keep letting the game come to him because the Blazers defensively shot 0 for 11, 0 for 11 when he was the primary defender. No one made a bucket. And then offensively, he was the youngest center to make 5 threes in a playoff game at 22 years old. This man is a cheat code. He has to stay aggressive, let the game come to him, use his basketball IQ, and the sky's the limit, literally, for Victor Wembanyama.
Look, you mentioned Wemby being the DPOY. Wemby scored on all 8 defenders he faced, and on defense, he held the Blazers to 1 of 12 shooting when contesting those shots. That's why he's a Defensive Player of the Year. Let's talk Sixers-Celtics. Jason Tatum coming off a near triple-double in his first playoff game since tearing his Achilles. That's just incredible to say out loud. But, Chiney, what are you watching from JT as he continues to build his confidence on the floor?
It's his playmaking. I am thoroughly impressed with his not only physical dominance so early coming back from injury, but more so his mental resolve and his IQ as well. Because it's hard to jump back into the mix knowing that your team is trying to compete to not only come out of the East, but win another championship. And the Boston Celtics have been a revelation, and he has been at the center of that as of late. When you think about his performance, he made an impact on both ends of the floor. He scored or assisted on 42 of the 81 points available while he was on the floor. That's 52% of the points during that time. His teammate shot 7 for 10 off of his passes. He had 7 assists. He dropped 25 points and got 11 rebounds. A year ago, this man was facing probably one of the toughest challenges of his career, and now he's bounced back in a huge way. So the Boston Celtics and Jason Tatum have been honestly just one of the best comeback stories I've seen in a long time.
The Celtics just a well-oiled machine, and JT just fitting in like the perfect puzzle piece that he is for that franchise. Shanae Agumike with the latest. Thanks so much, Shanae.
Always.
Head coach Chicago wanted to retain Donovan even after firing the 2 heads of its front office earlier this month. In 6 seasons, Donovan made the playoffs once in the 21-22 season, which was his only winning season in Chicago. A member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, Donovan plans to continue coaching, according to sources. All right, let's say hello to our basketball analyst, Monica McNutt, with us right now. Monica, you heard the breaking news. What's your reaction to Billy Donovan stepping away from that head coaching position in Chicago?
Hear me out, Amina, but to me, this is a little bit of an appreciation for his experience in Chicago. He understands that it is better suited to find people to fill the positions that you mentioned were vacated, that VP of operations and general manager, if they can come in and put their own stamp on the organization, including the new head coach position. From a basketball standpoint, you mentioned it, in the 6 seasons there in Chicago, they weren't exactly successful. So I don't know that it's the most enticing opportunity for Billy Donovan to move forward with the organization's leadership in flux moving forward.
Yeah, Bulls are the 3rd team searching for a new head coach, joining the Bucks and the Pelicans. But just like you mentioned, Billy Donovan stepping away because of the situation out there in Chicago and just unsure if he can take them where they need to be right now. Now, meanwhile, it was a rough night in New York. The Knicks blew a 14-point lead at Madison Square Garden last night, marking their 2nd largest blown lead at home in a playoff game in the play-by-play era, which dates back to 97-98. Monica, you were in the building last night to witness the Knicks squander that 12-point lead to the Hawks. My heart was broken watching that game last night. What contributed to that collapse?
You know, I mean, I don't want to take away from what the Atlanta Hawks were able to do. C.J. McCollum had a New York Broadway-worthy performance with those 32 points. They were able to put pressure on the Knicks in the 4th quarter in particular. The stat that jumped out to me is going into the 4th quarter, the Knicks had outscored the Hawks in their paint scoring category 50-36. When you looked at the box score by the time the game was over, that number shifted in favor of the Hawks 58-54. And so the Hawks got to the paint. C.J. McCollum went after Jalen Brunson. And in particular, the Knicks just dried up offensively. They scored just 15 points in that 4th quarter. And so, honestly, I mean, if you look back at game 1, things got a little bit funky in the 4th quarter, as well. But this time, the Hawks had ample amount of time to complete the comeback and get the victory.
Yeah, now the series shifts back to Atlanta. We'll see if the Knicks can get a W once they get down there. Now, before I let you go, a quick flashback, because that was just the 2nd time the Knicks have blown a 12-point lead entering the 4th quarter of a playoff game. The first, 1994 Eastern Conference Finals, Game 5. Knicks led by 12 entering the 4th, and Reggie Miller took over, scoring 25 in the 4th and hitting Spike Lee with that iconic choke sign you see right there, Monica. I know you understand just how painful it is to see that for New Yorkers right there.
I also think it's worth pointing out that the Knicks did go on to win that series. So it's just game 2, folks. There's a long series ahead.
Hey, look, that's all I want to hear as a New Yorker. That's all I want to hear, that they went on to win that series. Also, Monica, shout out to you, because I don't know what's going on. Monica's like out on a shopping trip right now, and she's hanging out here with us on Sports Center. A girl that is about her business.
Hello, she's got to get it done.
Giving rich auntie vibes very much so. Monica, thanks so much for the insight.
No problem.
Here we go. NFL